Charlie, if you're going to tell somebody that maybe hasn't seen this memorial for the first time, is there one specific thing or maybe that you wouldn't want them to overlook and make sure that they noticed that, or to what to look for, or that you remember?
Well, that's a tough question. It's a complex area. It's like a little park, really. And to take it all in, you just have to step back a little bit and look at the overall thing. Individually, there's the fountains, there's the colonnades, there's the semicircle, and it's all very white and attractive. But it seems to me that in order to appreciate it, you really need to step back and look at the whole thing, because it's, like I say, it's a little park, and it's a park of, I think, of peace, really. I think war is kind of a dumb idea in the first place. Anyhow, this is a memorial to a very difficult situation that we got into. Yeah.
Bill, I want to ask you, you've seen it many times. You mentioned one thing to me that was interesting, was that about the Pacific Ocean was on the one in the. Could you describe a little bit more detail?
You have two arches. You have the Atlantic and the Pacific on the other end. But one thing that's really neat for those of you that get the opportunity to see it is that they have the 400 stars. There's a wall with the stars on. Do you guys remember that? Mm-hmm. Well, each star represents 1,000 fallen in World War II. So that's a neat part of the memorial. And these guys are correct. It is so much bigger than people expect it to be. And so when our buses would unload and they would make their entry in, they would just leisurely walk around, and those in wheelchairs, we had all our guardians and push everybody around so they could read about, there's different battle descriptions and such on there, engravings, and even on the backside, only some people know this, on the backside of it, there's the little caricature, Kilroy was here. That's this little detail that not everybody knows about. But it's kind of fun, because as these guys get in there and they spend their time sitting and just observing, well, there'll be student groups there from around the country, and they'll visit with the World War II veterans. We had a situation on our first flight where a group of junior high kids from Columbus, Ohio, the teacher's grandfather was from Norfolk. Well, he found out that we were coming to town. That was the very first flight. And we showed up at the World War II Memorial, and here were about 100 junior high kids, the boys in shirts and ties and the girls in dresses, and they formed two rows, and our guys came off the buses and came down that line, and those kids clapped for an hour. I mean, some of these guys were crying, and I mean, it was, and then on the other end, as soon as they came through the students, there's Bob Dole standing there. I mean, whenever I run into those guys from the first flight, they always talk about all those young people that were there to greet them. And this happened with all the flights, was the greetings that they received at the airport, because there were local volunteers who would show up and wave flags. And so it was a hero's welcome, wasn't it, guys?
When we came back that night, real late, I couldn't believe how many people were waiting to welcome us.
At the airport, yeah.
And then when we landed at Dulles Airport every time, they did the water cannon salute. So we would land and we'd be taxiing over, and then the pilot would come on and say, "Gentlemen and ladies, look out the windows." There'd be the fire truck sitting there on the tarmac, and they'd shoot the water arch over the top. Did it every time.
Oh, that's wow.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Sounds like you had a very memorial visit as well as seeing the memorial. Bill, to speed this along and wrap this up, there's a couple of questions I'd like to ask you. Honoring these veterans like you did, and you mentioned mentioned it many times. But maybe sum it all up in a statement or two. In your heart, what did you feel the most significant thing about it you experienced?
Oh, I think it's
during
the joy and the fun the veterans had with the pre-flight dinner, the whole thing. We had also had activities here at home for the spouses. We called it the home front.
Oh.
Well, a lot of the ladies were taken around town to various things. They had a pizza party and a lunch. The second flight out of Lincoln, the wives all had lunch at the governor's mansion. So we tried to think of this thing through so that there was fun for everybody involved. But the veterans, the satisfaction that all the guardians received from watching their enjoyment, that's the fun part. And it was a great time, and people all over Nebraska stepped up financially, and people volunteered to go along and be guardians and volunteers and such. And so it's, I've been to 25, 30 funerals for honor flight veterans. I'll bet a third of the time I walk up to the casket and the veteran's wearing his red shirt.
Really?
So it gives you an indication of what it means, or what it meant to them to get to go on the honor flight to see the world.
Here they are today.
Yeah.
But they're vertical.
They are.
Are we hardly? The second part of this is that you had many of these 1,500 people that you took to Washington. Were they scattered all over the state of Nebraska?
Well, that's one of the proudest things we are about the whole effort, because we were very concerned from the beginning that people would perceive it to be just another Omaha Lincoln deal and everybody else out. So we were very cognizant of that. We ended up taking veterans from 250 towns around the state, north, south, east, and west.
Wow.
And in fact, the very first newspaper to do a story about it was the North Platte Telegraph, which was perfect, because that got the word out west, and those applications started to roll in. So a lot of Omaha guys, were on later flights, which is fun. They got to go. So.
Well, North Platte happened to be the USO.
Well, that's canteen.
Because they're very patriotic in that there.
Yeah.
Just,